And it's my pleasure to our first presenter of the day is a fellow North Californian, a doer, someone I admire a lot, a mentor and a friend, a visionary, wise leader who listens and is always ready to work. Dr. Nardos Tasso, we simply here in our community call it Nardi. Nardi, she'll be sharing with us some of the best practice of effective meetings. Don't we need it? Dr. Nardos Tasso is a principal scientist, toxicologist at Johnson & Johnson, where she serves as the non-clinical safety lead for projects in different therapeutic areas. Nardos received her PhD in chemistry from the University of Toronto and did postdoctoral fellowship at Scripps Research Institute at La Jolla, California. She's then went on to become a researcher at the Kimball Neuroscience Center in Toronto, Canada, with focus on investigating the mechanism of neuroregenerative after stroke, traumatic brain injury, and neurodegenerative diseases such as multiple sclerosis. Nardos has authored over 25 peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, and a few patents. She is an active member of the Northern California Oromoo community, where she is a force in the advocacy team, grant writing team, and other committees. She's also an advisor on the Advocacy Task Force for Oromoo Leadership, Legacy, and Advocacy Association, and a visionary entrepreneur. Nardi, the floor is yours, and you have precisely 25 minutes.
Thank you so much, Tisho, for that very, very kind introduction. So first of all, I would like to thank Oromia Foundation and the organizers of this webinar for giving me the opportunity to present today. And I'm happy to be here and spend the next few minutes talking about best practices for effective meetings. And this is a really important topic since we spend a considerable amount of time sitting in meetings. Especially, I feel like, and this, I'm not going to talk about work-related meetings because those are different. I want to focus on meetings that we organize to discuss Oromo-related issues. And I feel like since the assassination of Hachalu, just the number of meetings have exploded. And also the pandemic had made such platforms such as Zoom really available at our fingertips to schedule meetings. And I think most of the time we schedule meetings without a lot of thoughts into what we want to achieve. So I really want to touch on those aspects today. And so I put this presentation together from what I've read and from my own personal experience working in corporate America. And I just synthesized like the two and put together what I considered to be some of the best practices. So this presentation today is not by no means an exhaustive presentation. So please take it as such, but I do think it's a good starter and it provides some principles that can be applied to make sure that we are getting the most out of our meetings. Time is really, really precious. Time is something we don't have.
Are you going to share your slides or?
Oh, yeah. So as I was saying, time is something that we don't have a lot, right? Like it's really a precious commodity. So we really have to think about how we can get the most out of our meetings so that we are not wasting our time and we're not wasting other people's time. So just I want to open with these remarks. So I'm going to start with a question to the audience. So the first question is, how many non-work related meetings do you attend in a typical week? So 1 to 2 meetings per week, 3 to 5 meetings per week, more than 5 meetings per week, or no meeting per week. So please put your answers in the chat to see how much time we do spend on non-work related meetings. So what I'm getting at is like these are side projects you're working on, Oromo meetings that you spend, in a week. So just put some in the chat. And Tisho, can you monitor what people put in the chat?
There's a couple of 3 to 5. There's 1 over 5. There's only 3 participants so far.
Okay. Anybody who volunteers to put how much time they spend on meetings per week, not work related? Okay. Well, it looks like B or C are, what people spend more on meetings. So let's say you spend 3 to 5 meetings per week. That is a lot of meetings, right? So, and let's say
Over 10 is
each meeting is 1 hour, and which we know Oromo meetings are really, really long. So they're not just 1 hour. So if, let's say conservatively, you spend 3 hours a week per meeting, so that amounts to about 3 to 4% of your time, your lifetime. So, and that is a huge, huge amount to spend on meetings. And because if you think about it, if you spend 3% of your time on like not work-related meetings, and then everything is competing for your time, family, your other activities are competing for your time. So that's a really considerable amount of time that we spend on meetings. And so I really, really want to encourage all of us to approach meetings really seriously, because you're spending your time. So there's this concept of opportunity cost, right? What could you be doing, if you were not attending that meeting? What's something that you could be spending your time if you're not attending your meeting? So I really want to encourage you to think about meetings, whether you're organizing one or you're attending one, to take it seriously, because this is your time and you don't want to waste your time or other people's time. So that's all I'm going to say on that. And next question, how many do you consider necessary or important? And by what I mean by this is, could this have been taken in a different platform? Could email be sufficient, or a brief phone call be sufficient? So how many of these meetings that you're attending do you consider important? So again, please put your answers in the chat.
we got one B so far.
Okay.
Another B. Another less than 10. One of them is less than 10. Okay. So I consider it in the B. So yeah. I think B is the winner. Okay, so 10 to 50%. So that means we're really wasting 50% of the time that we're spending on meetings. So just, this is also something we need to think about. Okay, and the third, how do you really decide whether to attend a meeting or not? How do you base your decision? So do you base it on the agenda? Do you base it on what you can contribute? Do you attend a meeting because you feel that you have to attend a meeting, or to just listen and be informed? So quickly, please put your answers in the chat. Okay. 1C, 1B, and D, 1B, 1A.
Okay. So
it's a mixed bag.
Mixed bag, maybe more B and C, or
more B.
More B, because based on what you can. Okay. All right. So this is just for you to think about when you attend meetings. Okay. Now, I just want to highlight what I'll be focusing on. I'll be focusing on these 3 general principles for holding an effective meeting. First, I'll talk about setting the agenda. Of course, the agenda is really important because this is the compass of the meeting. This sets the tone. This lets people know what the discussion is going to focus on. So this is very, very important. And second, starting on time and ending on time. This is also, I cannot stress how this is important. So we'll spend a few minutes discussing this, and then ending with an action plan. So if you spend all your time discussing something and you don't end up with a very specific action plan, then you've wasted your time. So I'm going to spend some time discussing this as well. Okay, setting the agenda. So as I just mentioned, agenda provides the compass for the conversation. This is the direction of the conversation. This lets people know what lane to stay in. And sometimes people come up with all different ideas in a meeting. They could be great ideas, but if it's not on the agenda, then you're not going to cover what you set out to do. So this is very, very important. Setting the agenda is critical. And then if you're a meeting organizer, it's really, really good practice to send the agenda to participants a few days prior to the meeting. What this does is it helps people to plan. and to come prepared so that you will get the most out of the meeting. So please send the agenda, share the agenda. And also as a meeting organizer, if you're setting the agenda, then it makes you think, do I really need this meeting? What do I want to accomplish in this meeting? So please send the agenda a few days prior to the meeting. And then also setting the agenda or thinking about the agenda really helps you to know who should be invited, right? Who should you have in the room for that discussion to be productive? So it's really important. And so when we think about an agenda, it should be really simple and effective, and it should contain at least 3 things. First is the meeting objective. What is the purpose of the meeting? Are we meeting to brainstorm on a certain topic? Are we meeting to make a decision? Are we meeting to align on some idea? So the meeting objective is very, very important so that participants will come prepared. And you should allocate time for each item so that if people stay within that allocated time when that agenda is discussed, and believe it or not, allocating time makes the discussion very efficient because people will keep that in mind. So please allocate time for each item on the agenda. And third is assign a person for each item so that people can come prepared. So it's not nice to be surprised at a meeting to speak on something when you haven't really thought about it. So please make sure that people know if you expect them to speak. And then if you're organizing a meeting, prioritize the agenda so that the critical items are out of the way so that you don't run out of time. And so please prioritize so that the things that require more discussion or the things that you really need to discuss at that meeting should go first. Okay, so the other component of holding an effective meeting is starting on time and ending on time. And both are really, really important. And this topic was, touched on earlier on, and this is something on everybody's mind. As I said, time is really, really precious. So this is a practice that we need to continue to, this is something we need to continue to practice, especially in Oromoo meetings, whether this is in person or virtually. Start on time. If people don't show up on time, then you don't have to wait for people. You can leave a little bit of a buffer to allow people to join, but then there is no reason to wait for people if they don't show up on time. So please start meetings on time, and ending on time is also as important as starting on time. Okay, so this, I think, shows respect. If you start on time, it shows that you respect your time and you respect everybody's time. So if you don't, then that means it shows that this is really not important. So please start on time. And especially if you're in the leadership, show up on time, because people take cues from those in leadership. If you don't show up on time, then people will not take it seriously. So if you're especially a leader, show up on time. And avoid very long meetings. Believe it or not, people cannot focus for a very long time. And I'm talking about adults. Normally, we think kids cannot focus, but adults also have limited attention span. And I'll speak more on this because this is very important. So more on this later. And then meetings should end on time. For this to happen, every person needs to contribute to this. The meeting organizer, of course, has to make sure things run on time, but every person attending that meeting should make it easier for the organizer. So if you are speaking at a meeting, please be conscious of the time that you're taking when speaking, because if you take 10 minutes to speak, then you're taking time away from somebody else. So please be conscious. And also, don't speak unless you're adding value. And I really, really feel very strong about it. Think about what you really want to add. So before you speak, think about, has this been spoken? Has somebody else already said something about this? Is my, whatever I'm adding is going to add value? So please think before you speak and avoid repetitions. And if somebody already said it, there is no value in repeating. So please avoid repetitions. And this requires active listening. This came up yesterday. So if you're actively listening, then you will know when something has been said, if an idea has been already explored. So please avoid repetitions. And oftentimes, especially on virtual meetings, It's really, really easy to be distracted because there are things going in the background. You have your phone on you. So it's very good practice to focus and actively listen, because this is your time. You come here, you're attending the meeting to add value, to take something out of it. So practicing active listening is very important. And as a meeting organizer, you should specify the end time. If you say an hour, please keep the meeting to an hour. Okay. Oh. Okay. So and then once the meeting is, once you've discussed the agenda items, it's good to leave the last few minutes to discuss the next step. So summarize the take-home messages and also bring up the next steps. Do any of the items that were discussed need follow-up meeting? Is there an action plan? So please take a few minutes at the end of the meeting to summarize and then plan what happens next. And so when we come to action plans, these action plans should be really, really clear. They should not be vague. And what I mean clear is they should have at least 3 components. They should include the what. So what is the action plan? What needs to be done? So that should be clear. And the who needs to take care of these items. So please assign a person who will be responsible for this. And then when? This is also very important. What is the time frame? Are we going to meet in 2 weeks and then bring back what we've done on the action item? Does this need a follow-up meeting? Is it going to be an email follow-up? So please specify, be as specific as possible. Otherwise, all the time you spent in the meeting will be for nothing, right? Because there is no follow-up. And I feel like this is where there is a big gap. So after when the meeting is concluded, we leave without really having an action plan and assigning people and then specifying the time frame. So this is important. And then finally, distribute meeting minutes to everyone who attended the meeting and also ask for comments. And every meeting should have someone taking minutes. This doesn't need to be extensive, but there should be a summary of what has been discussed. Otherwise, we forget what has been discussed, and we will discuss something over and over again while it's been discussed 6 months before. So take minutes, assign someone to take minutes or notes, and then distribute this to everybody and ask for comments. And asking for comments is important because you might be surprised that the way people understand things or outcomes could be different, right? So this is a place where you align on the message. So ask for comments. And then once you've collected all the comments, the person who's taking the meeting, then you should finalize the meeting, endorse the meeting minutes, and archive it so that in the future, if you want to go back and look at what has been discussed and decided, you can do so. And so this is also very, very important that every meeting should have a record of the meeting minutes. Okay, so coming to what is really the ideal meeting duration. So I really tried to read what companies do, right? What successful companies do, how many, what's the duration of their meetings. And so what I've come to realize, and from what I've read, is that the shorter, the better. So if you can accomplish something in 30 minutes, there is no reason why you should schedule a 1-hour meeting. So really think about how much time do you need to discuss what's on the agenda. But the shorter, the better. So if you can accomplish it in a short time, don't schedule long meetings. And what I've been able to find is that the average adult human is able to concentrate on a task for around 15 to 20 minutes. And actually, this could even be lower now because of social media and everything that's happening so fast, reducing our attention span. So please take this into consideration, right? People are not able to focus for 3 hours. That's just impossible. So, research also shows that the engagement in meetings starts to drop quite rapidly after about 30 minutes. So this is, I wanted to get some numbers, and this is what I was able to find: the time of the table on the right, time of meeting, and percentage of people paying attention. So you can see if it's 45 plus minutes, you kind of lose 50% of the people in the room. And especially in virtual meetings, don't schedule very long meetings because it's really tough to pay attention for a long time. So try to avoid meetings that are over 1 hour. So as a rule, 45 minutes to an hour is really enough. Very occasionally, it may be appropriate to hold a meeting longer than 1 hour, but this should be occasional and should not be common practice. And if you do have very long meetings, please include breaks so that people can stretch or go grab water and so on. So an hour meeting, 45 minutes to an hour is really sufficient. And if a topic needs longer time to discuss, in my opinion, I feel like we should have a series of meetings instead of one long meeting. So have a series of 1 hour meeting to discuss a topic that needs deep discussion. Okay, so when you're leading a meeting, please, these are some points that you should keep in mind. Be crystal clear on the agenda and what you want to accomplish. This I've talked about. And then control the meeting, not the conversation. And by what I mean by this is, as a meeting leader, you should let people speak. You should let people express their ideas, of course, within the allotted time. So you should be controlling the direction of the meeting, the direction of the meeting, so that people are staying within the agenda. But you can't control the conversation. You shouldn't tell somebody not to say something because the person has to be able to express their ideas. So we should make space for people to speak within the specified time. And once an item is discussed, it's a good practice to summarize the take-home before proceeding to the next item. And this doesn't have to be long-winded. It could be very short, but just summarize. The take-home is this, and then proceed to the next item. And as a leader of a meeting, be firm, but also be flexible. So be firm so that the discussion should not stray from the agenda. But sometimes it's surprising that niche issues or things you haven't expected to be discussed could come up. So you can make time for these discussions if there is time. So you could be open to explore if there's time. However, if there's no time, you can schedule a follow-up meeting, and you should make clear that these topics will be discussed, in the next meeting. And then finally, I want to touch on managing personality. So when you're leading a meeting, this is one of the key aspects of having an effective meeting, because people are different, right? We have different personalities. Some people like to speak. They'll be the first one to talk. Some people like to dominate a conversation. They don't leave time for others. And some people could be shy. They probably need a little bit of a nudging to speak, but they could have a really, really important contribution to the conversation. So as a leader of a meeting, you should make space for all these different personalities and make sure that people who need to speak should be speaking. So if you have to call on people, gently you can say, so-and-so, do you have something to add to this? So that people who are shy and not really, they don't like people who don't speak up could have the space to speak. So managing personalities is very important so that it's not dominated by just one person. Okay, what should you do when you participate in a meeting? Of course, prepare prior to the meeting. So this is, so having the agenda ahead of time really, really helps. So take it seriously, prepare, think about what you can contribute to that meeting. And be on time, we talked about this, and adopt the right mindset. So what I mean by this is be open to listen, be open to be wrong, and be open to contribute. So those are very, very important. So having the right mindset, coming ready to contribute at the same time, to also correct if you're thinking about you should be thinking about something differently is very important. And then listen and pay attention. I've touched on this. This is very, very important. You should not, that is your time. You've allocated that 1 hour to be in that meeting. So try not to be distracted by other things. Don't be looking at your phone or having a background conversation if you're attending that meeting and if you're serious about it. So don't interrupt, let others finish their thoughts. This is really clear. And don't ramble, stay on track. So this, before you speak, if there is time, sometimes things happen quickly and you don't have time to collect your thoughts. But if you have the chance, try to be concise and speak to the message without rambling too much. And then in the end, please be courteous and civil, be nice, be gentle. There is no reason not to be nice, so be courteous and civil. These are some of the principles we should adhere to when we're participating in a meeting. Okay, so the 3 Ps for effective meeting. These are purpose, people, and process. You can see that on this Venn diagram on the left. For effective meeting, you need to be at the intersection of these 3 things. So the purpose is a clearly defined purpose for the meeting.
You have 3 minutes remaining.
Okay, I'm about to be done. I think 1 or 2, maybe 1 more slide. So a clearly defined purpose is essential. Purpose is not topic or subject. It is the reason we are having the meeting. So is it brainstorming? Is it alignment? Is it decision? So that needs to be clear. People, do you have the right people in the room? Because if you don't have the right people in the room, then the meeting is not productive. And finally, the process. Is a meeting the right process to accomplish the purpose? Do you actually need a meeting? So these 3 things have to come together to hold effective meeting. And so this is the take-home message. The why, what is the purpose of the meeting? The what do we want to accomplish in the meeting? The who are the key stakeholders who need to be in the meeting? The when's the best time to hold a meeting? So try to accommodate people's time so you can get the best attendance. And then finally, well-defined action plans and roles and responsibilities are key. So this is my take-home message. And when we have these things together, you can have an effective meeting. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nardos or Nardi, for a wonderful presentation. I saw a cartoon on one of your slides that says meetings do not have to be endless to be eternal.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very nice quote that I didn't miss. There's really relevant points that you hit head on, but I will not take time to talk about those because I know our audience would love to engage with this. Raise your hand whenever you want to have a comment or question. Keep it precise. We have the next 15 minutes for that purpose. And I'll call on you. Any comments, any questions? Dr. Gamachu, you go first.
Thank you, teacher. Nardi, thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. Amen.
I enjoyed the presentation. The only thing which I would like to know is how do you control the time when people are late and you are there ready to start, and very few, maybe 1/3 is already arrived. Is it very effective to start regardless people are on time to attend your meeting? Thank you.
Great. I will take another one. It doesn't seem to be a lot of hands up. Oh, there you go, Dr. Hambisa, and then Dr. Baharu. And then after those 3 questions, you can answer or comments.
Yeah.
Mini gochuruma fi baay'een gammadee ani Nardosi baay'ee galatoomii. I think if we had only this one presentation for the entire 2-day webinar and we are successful at this, I think we are successful. And we all of us have been in many meetings over the last 2-3 years, and never ending, always winding meetings where we really don't come up with the what, who, when questions at the end of the meeting. And so everything we have been discussed is just lost in the air, and it's not going to, so it's just a waste of our time. So if we could learn from this, all of us, and we say, okay, how do we need to proceed? What do we need to do? I think if we have that capacity, if we have that opportunity to self-reflect, I think this was really a very successful presentation. And so I salute you, my sister. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Dr. Baharu.
Thank you, T. Let me add my voice to the Dr. Hamdisa's. Truly, this is a very extremely educational presentation talk you gave us. All my life, I've been attending meetings. As you can see, I'm not a young man. But always there is something that can be improved about meetings, and you literally touched on all the elements. And thank you so much for that. It's great to listen to you. And that's why we are desperately trying to diversify our team to have more of you in our club, not a collection of old people who are now feel the Oromoo Foundation. Please help us recruit people. Finally, there are a couple of industries. I know there is nothing you can do about it. Industries in which this is not a bias, this is a reality. I lived all my life in different parts of the world, where weekly meetings are literally a religion, and particularly in government business. There is little that you can do to change that reality. Again, as I said, because of the nature of the industry. It's an industry that somewhat depends on a resource that it doesn't have to justify how it's going to be played or how it's going to be enriched. In that situation, I know, as I said, you may not even have an answer for this, but what do you think would be the best way of dealing with it if you are there as an individual and conscious of efficiency and effectiveness and stuck with that reality?
Thank you, Dr. Baharu. And
what would you do? it's just for brainstorming. Trust me, I don't take me whatever. I'm not trying to put on the spot. I know I haven't had an answer for it all my life. So
thank you. I think the question is clear, and I'll have you answer this one, and then I'll there are two more people raising their hand.
You don't even have to do that right now, you know.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not familiar with the government anyway, so I don't think I'm the best person to answer it. But I do think if you have the choice not to attend these meetings, I think if there is that option, then don't, if, based on the agenda. So because it doesn't bring anything, but I know sometimes the choice is not there. But in the private sector, things are done differently, right? People don't actually want to have meeting unless there is a need to have a meeting, and people are really happy to cancel meetings, and everybody's like happy, right? Because that means you don't need that meeting. So private sector is more conscious about scheduling meetings. Okay, so what the first question, what do we do when people don't show up on time? And I think this is really something we face all the time, especially in Oromoo meetings. So what I think is, if somebody doesn't show, so I normally encourage people to indicate whether they're going to be attending a meeting or not. So I think that's also one practice we could do. And I know this is going to take time for people to be in the habit of doing this, right? So if you're not attending a meeting, just let the organizer know that you're not going to be there, so that people are not waiting for you. And the organizer also will cancel a meeting if you're a critical member of the, if you have to be there, and then if the meeting should be canceled, right? So I think that's also something we can practice, like letting the organizer know that you're not going to be there, and things happen. Maybe the time doesn't work for the person. So I think that's a good practice. And so, but if people are late, that means either they don't care, and that's truthful, because we don't show up to work meetings late. We show up on time because there are consequences. So if people don't show up on time, that means they really don't care. That's unless and otherwise there are circumstances that prevent the person from showing up. But if you're serious about a meeting, then you'll show up on time. So I feel that if people don't show up, start the meeting. If critical people are not there, don't do the meeting, cancel the meeting. And it's unfortunate because the people who showed up are, it's not it's not great for them. But if you don't have the right people in the meeting, I think it's better not to have the meeting, because then after the meeting is done, you are where you started. You may have to have another meeting. So that's how I feel about it. I don't know if it's the right way to feel about it, but I would cancel a meeting if critical people are not present. The others are comments. So I feel that if we start practicing this best practice or good practices, if we start doing one thing, at every meeting, then over time, our meetings will start being effective. But one thing I promised myself is I'm not going to waste my time attending a meeting that I'm not going to be contributing to or getting some value. I mean, we can attend a meeting if you want to listen or be informed. That's good. But the meeting has to be important enough for me. So that is something I want to practice more. And so because it's time is precious. We could be doing other things. And so we should be serious about it. I think I don't know if
you've covered everything, Dr. Nardi. I will take Adarfase and then Professor Mokre after questions, comments. Adarfase, you're on mute if you are speaking.
Fayyaa ta'e baay'ee fayyaa ta'e akkam ooltan hundi keessanii. Dr. Nardos baay'ee galatoomii keessattuu waa'een walga'iidha. Namoota siyaasa keessa hojjetanii fi qabsoo keessa jiranii wanti guddaadha. Walga'uun irratti mari'achuun kan keenya immoo dhugumaa rakkoon isaa maayinni aadaa keenyaa fi aadaa akkatti amma nu itti jirru kun hojjetutu adda waan ta'eef si'a baay'ee wal nu jala rukutaa. Kanaaf dhuguma kan akkasii taa'anii ilaalanii irratti mari'atanii akkamittiin fooyyeffannaa kan jedhu waan barbaachisaadha jedhee tan fudhaa baay'ee fayyaa ta'e. Gaaffiin ani qabu tokko lafa keessatti amma walga'ii yeroo nama waamanii waan irratti dubbatamu sagantaa walga'ii sanaa guyyaa hamma tokko dura namootatti erguu, namoonni kun isa dubbisanii na ilaalamoo na ilaaluudhaanii murteeffachuu danda'u. Gara biraanis immoo akkasittiin ajandaa yookiin waan irratti dubbatan lafa kaa'uuni dokumeentiidha. Maalirra namoota maaltu dhufee maalirratti dubbatanii kan jedhu dokumeentiidha, seenaadha, hojiidhaafis iyyuu immoo waan barbaachisaadha. Maaliifi murtiitu fudhatamaa, murtiin inni fudhatame suni namoonni murtiin sun ilaalu isa dubbisanii hojiirra oolchuu yookiin hojiirra oolchine jechuu danda'u. Gara biraa kan inni itti dabaluu barbaade isa duwwaayyuutu hin ta'in, ajandaa erguuyyuutu hin ta'in, tokkommoo kan jiru qaboo yookiin qabiyyee walga'ii tokko. Innis ani si'a baay'ee rakkoon ani qabu walga'ii Oromoo kan hojii wajjin wal qabatee jiru sababii qaboon yookiin qabiyyee waan barreeffame miniitiin barreeffame sababii hin jirree fi rakkoodha. Dirqama namatti kenname duukaa bu'uuni ilaaluun. Kanas aadaa keenya keessaati utuu jabeessanii tokkos immoo akkuma jedhee dokumeentiidha. Maaliif nuyi siyaasa hojjenna? It's part of our seenaa keenya. Kanaaf kunis barbaachisaadhaan jedha. Gara biraan immoo yeroo namoonni akkamittiin akka qooda fudhatan achirratti gaaffiin qaba. Amma nuyi kanas dubbannu namoota muuxannoo qabanidha. Walga'ii irra taa'u, walga'iin akkamitti akka adeemu waa'ee isaa warra baratanii yookiin tireeningii fudhatanidha. Hawaasni keenya garuu wanama community keessaa yookiin hawaasa keessaan hojjedha. Waan kuni hundumaa biratti beekamaa miti. Kana akkamittiin wal fudhachiisuu dandeenya jechuun haqa namoota keenya kan harka caalu haqa isaanii eegnee hojiinis immoo akka hojjetamu yeroo keenyas immoo akka qusachuu dandeenyu kan attamitti walitti fiduu dandeenya nu akka Oromootti fayyaa ta'a.
Thank you. Very good questions, but I'll give the next chance to Professor Mokra, and then you can Professor Mokra did you change your mind?
Well, I will say just a short thing about timekeeping, waiting for the audience to come or the.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, that has a history, not the history which seenaas aadaa fi seen kaasatu hin ta'in seenaa mataa isaa qaba. Afaan Oromootiin an dubbadha Oromoodha dana kan jiru hundumtu. Miitingii kana walgahii kana waggaa dheeraa godhaa turre. Yaa'uun ilaalu numatu aadaa uume. Diyaasporaa keessatti aadaa uumamedha. Jabana student unionii qabna dana Awurooppaa kana walga'ii sa'aatiin dhufa namni yeroo sa'aatiin dhufa. Adana Sweden keessatti yoo dhufuu baatte sa'aatiidhaan you will be penalized horii kaffalta. Kanaaf namni dhufa ture. Awurooppaan baay'eessuma ture. Ameerikaan immoo yaa'uudhaan Ameerikaan immoo aadaa gara biraa qaba yeroodhaan hin dhufu. Oosaanis akkasuma godha. Kana waan ta'eef namni hin hafu inuma dhufa. Kanaaf walga'ii kana tursinee maaliitti goonee jalqabnaa jennee yaadni sun dhufe akkumatti aadaa ta'e. Namni nu dhufa jedhamee amanama. Leetti yoo ta'e siin dhufa kanaaf ittuma fufnaa jedhama malee dhiisanii hin deemanii walakkaa sa'aatii hafeera namni jedhanii dhiisanii hin deeman. Inuma eegda. Gaaf immoo eegaa yoo ooluudhaaf adeemta hin taallee takka. Aadaa sanatu jira nu keessa. Gara biraanii 91tti gaafa dargiin kufe kaanee addanaa fiignee biyya dhanne. Aadaa fi ana ture Awurooppaadhaa kan deeme jabana sana namni gara biraan xahaa ture. Warra machaa uummatatu walga'ii godha. Erga wanni sun dhumee booda haasa'uudhaaf warra bakkeedhaa lolarraa deebi'ee kanaa wajjin. Ani akkuma saddanaa sa'eetanii takka ture onnaku lafa taa'uyyuu hin arganne. Namni biyyaa dhufee hoolii sana guutee I couldn't just get a place to sit. You see? Xiqqooma ishee turee dhannaan iddoon hin jiru. Namni biyyaa miillaan deemee makiiwwaniin illee hin jiru. Tiraanspoortiin illee hin jiru. Finfinnee keessa yoo sana dhufee achitti argamee guutee ta'a. Achitti illee aadaa ta'e ranni yeroodhaan walga'ii dhaqan dargii tokko as godhee natti fakkaata. Moodumaa akkasitti ta'a natti fakkaata. Aadaa kana nuti uume akkamitti ofirraa wanni gonaa jechuudha. Aadaa wanni Habashaa jedhama. Sa'aatii Habashaa jedhama. Baay'isee wayii haala kanaa faranjiin akkasuma hin jedhu. Kana ofirraa akkamitti haqnaadha dubbiin malee nuti uume malee kaalcharii Oromoo keessas kaalcharii adda addaa keessa iyyuu hin jiru.
Thank you very much. That's a very good addition. We have only 5 seconds left, but there are 2 gentlemen that are raising their hands. I'll give you 30 seconds each to add to this conversation. Dr. Bahiru and then Dr. Gammachuu.
And quickly, are passing into one information we cannot at it, and they are passing the case my wide leadership can navy records and mentioning buttons and addressing the children. Abni kuna kumanjal kabajede yo institution gurguddaa keessatti waa'ee humna nama Oromoo keessatti cimsuudha haa ta'u iyyuu malee kaayyoon keenya amma kan irratti yaadaa jirru dhaabbolii Oromoodhaa community human rights organization warri necessarily trendy ta'etu hin ta'in but murteeffannoo isaaniitiin wanta Oromoo irratti waa'ee dirqamanii fi dhaabanii wanta adda addaa gaggeessinanii olii gadi tattaafataa jiran kanaafi akkamitti basic skillii kun isaan bira ga'uu danda'a yoo isheedhanii nu dhufanii yaadni isaa kanaafidha leadership programmii kanas kan itti yaadnee jiruurra oolchuudhaaf hojjetaa jirruuf kanaafidha jechuudha fayyaa ta'a.
Oh, thank you very much. Dr. Gamachu and Hall is, I don't know who that is. I'll give you guys literally 30 seconds because I feel like every addition is going to be critical. Go ahead, 30 seconds each.
Galatoon Tisho, Nardo sunti jechoo barbaade ila wanti kun waan wal barsiifnu waan ta'eef maal wal geettiyoo gara wanta akka aadaatitti fudhatame tokkotu jira. Namni sa'a sadiitti yoo jedhan sa'a lama godhan sagantaa. Namni sa'a kabajee dhufu sa'a lamatti yoo dhufe haga sa'a sadii warrummaan qopheessuu iyyuu hin dhufu. Kunillee akka aadaata waluma barsiisuu fi moronni moroda muraa jennaan kama irra qaraatitu jedhan. Galatoon.
Thank you very much. That's very precise. Hall, you're next.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Dhiifama caaltuudha kun I don't know.
Caaltu Hall there.
Yeah. Galatoomi Dr. Nardos baay'ee presentationii gaariidhaan illee walakkaadhaan hin dhufee anis seera walgahii cabseera jechuudha dhiifama. Pointiin fudhadhee waan haasofte keessaa tokko active listening wanta jedhu fi yoo value hin dabaltu ta'e haasa'inii waan jettee lamaan wal qabatee deema kun baay'ee gaariidha walgahii keenya keessatti wanta practice gochuu qabnudha. Isuma tokko jedhee tokkorra deebi'uu dhiisuu jechuudha. Gaaffiin qabu garuu tokko wanta jette keessaati yoo yeroo namni haasa'uu hin dhaabinii waan jette tokko jira. Ni tarii akademiyaa keessatti yoo iddoo professional keessatti gaarii ta'uu danda'a. Garuu walgahii akka kan keenyaa kan Oromoo keessatti waan parliamentary procedure jedhan tokkotu jira. Waan akka order point of order maal jedhanii yeroo namni karaarraa ce'u dhaabuu dhaabantu jira. Isa kan akkamittiin ilaaltaa sin jechuuf hin jedhee yoo namni pointii isaa waan ajandaarra hin jirre haasa'ee dhaabuun sirra hin jiru.
It's when you're a participant. So the leader of the meeting should interrupt people to keep the time. But as a participant, I think it's nice not to interrupt people. So that I think, to me, that's the role of the person who's leading the meeting. So I just want to clarify that was the context in which I spoke when I said don't interrupt each other, don't speak over each other.
Our next presenter is somebody who I met very recently. He has been interested in leadership since his early days. He's a true leader and educator who has set foot in classrooms in urban areas and hard to reach remote areas in Oromia. His 3 favorite words in organizational leadership, correct me if I'm wrong, are respect, engagement, and empowerment. He'll be presenting in one of the most sought after skill set, conflict resolution. That is Dr. Demise Karorsa. He is a leadership and policy expert with extensive management experience in government and non-governmental organizations. Currently, he is an independent consultant in the areas of leadership and policy, project planning and management, and research and evaluations with research institutions and international organizations. He was the director of the Bureau of Food Security and Disaster Preparedness and Prevention, leading programs that help millions of disaster-affected people in Oromia, in Ethiopia. He also held multiple leadership roles at the Oromia Regional Bureau of Education, including head of project planning and management, team leader of planning and programming, and senior expert of research and evaluations. Dr. Demise also served the USAID for 10 years as a senior project management specialist, where he was responsible for the design and management of various development programs and projects. Demise holds PhD in leadership and policy and has published peer-reviewed articles in scholarly journals. Dr. Karorsa, the floor is yours, and you have precisely 25 minutes.
Thank you so much.